Many living with autism, we look at the classroom, for example, that brings both opportunities and obstacles, from sensory sensitivities to social communication barriers. So it is Autism Awareness Month, and we're shining a light on the educational experiences of students, on the spectrum. How are schools creating inclusive spaces? What strategies empower autistic learners? To delve into this a bit more, we're now joined by Specialist Neurologist Dr. Tracy Mmako. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. It's a long weekend, so we really do appreciate you coming through to the office to speak to us on this. I mean, when I think about the classroom and how it has to cater for children with almost every need, let's start there perhaps. What are the early common signs, of autism, especially that parents and teachers should be looking out for?
I think the earlier signs are before the child starts with formal education. I think the system that we have currently running in South Africa, it's an obstacle in itself, because children are then expected to be identified when they have already entered the classroom.
Okay.
But some of the early signs are, as you've mentioned, sensory sensitivities. Children are sensitive to texture, they are sensitive to noise, they are sensitive to smell, they are sensitive to taste. So it is a broad spectrum, as they say, autism is a spectrum. But other commoner signs are a delay in developing speech, and also a delay in sort of developing some kind of integrative social skills. So they are not able to communicate themselves quite well. And some of them remain non-verbal for their whole lives, while others do develop language, even though it happens at a later stage.
And I think it brings me to a question about, early childhood development educators. Now, they're the ones that are going to have to, identify, the early signs of autism. If it's not the parent, of course, it's going to be the early childhood development educator. What is the importance of the training of these educators at such an early stage to be able to identify this?
It is quite a sad thing for me as a neurologist. It's quite sad for me as a neurologist and as a mother of an autistic child that these children are expected to be identified at school or even at early childhood development. I think the way we should look at it is that the earliest development for any child happens in the household.
Right.
So the more aware our communities are about the early features of autism, the better we will be as a country in terms of dealing with these children. So if mom knows when the child is supposed to develop normal speech, if mom knows that when you talk to a small child, even from ages 18 to 24 months, you expect the child to be able to make relative eye contact with you. And if that is absent, then it should raise a flag in their mind. I think the awareness needs to start in the household, in the community, and also even at primary health care level. These children are taken time and again on a regular basis for the extended program of immunization. And I think it would be a great thing if that road to health chart included a small screening for autism. It wouldn't be autism alone. It would screen also for things like hyperactivity. It can screen for a lack of eye contact, a poorly developed speech at the age of 2, and that kind of a thing. So that by the time we get to early childhood development, then the teacher at early childhood development is going to look at the child's ability to receive information and to produce it, because that is what school is. You are given a lesson and you are supposed to be able to reproduce it so that we can see that you are able to meet the quota for that class. So I think if we look at it that way, then we are more integrated as a society. It cannot only be early childhood development teachers or teachers at school that are expected to know the signs.
How do we also shift the narrative from awareness more now to acceptance as well as inclusion, which is very important?
The more aware we are, the better we are. You know, I will remember a quote from the great Maya Angelou who said, "We do what we know when we know it, but when we know better, we do better." So the more people know about autism and what the science may be, the more open to inclusivity they will be. My heart goes out to the educators, because I would imagine that in an ideal world, early childhood development teachers, as well as the teachers in primary school, for example, need to have a certain way of being trained to recognize autism. I think on books, they say that training is there. But in reality, on the ground, for every parent or family member or community who is dealing with a person with autism, they don't see those kind of tools that the departments usually talk about.
I mean, what strengths do autistic children have? You know, they're never often spoken about, because it's not just having to deal with this, but I'm sure there are strengths as well, some positives that we can actually speak about.
There are a lot of positives with autism. I think a lot of people tend to think that all autistic people are either of low intelligence or they are of high intelligence.
Right.
Unfortunately, that is not the truth. There is a segment of autism which was previously referred to as Asperger's syndrome, where the person has autism as well as a higher than average intellect. So if this person is then not identified, we are not able to tap into their particular, talents that they can have. Just out of interest, somebody as profound as Albert Einstein was a person living with autism. And if you can look at the scientific sphere of our lives, a lot of things date back to when Albert Einstein was alive. So I do not want the public to think about autism as people who do not have talents. Even those people who are of low intelligence or they are of average intelligence, those children can still do a lot.
How can we better support, autistic children? The support, of course, must start at home.
Yes.
And as they go out into the schooling environment and try to interact, what more can we do? What more support can be provided, both on the home front and as well as the schooling environment?
So I'll start with support by saying our identification rate of autism in South Africa is still lower than average as compared to our other peers. So we need better identification strategies. That is number one, because that is a form of support. Otherwise, the child with autism is then put into a mainstream environment without support. So, and support number two would be general awareness of the public, so that that child who is then at the shopping mall and is experiencing a meltdown is not shunned upon, and looked at as a naughty child or a child without home training. And the next support would be support in a schooling environment, a formal schooling environment, where the teacher should know how to deal with the child. And because of sometimes the poor communication skills that these children have when they are young, it might be difficult for the teacher to communicate with the child. So we need alternate ways of communication. There are a number of children who do very well when their communication tool is, for example, a tablet. There are many children who do very well when their communication tool are flashcards.
Yes.
They can learn in that way.
Doc, thank you so much. Very enlightening indeed, and thank you so much for taking time to come and speak to us. Coming into studio. It's a long weekend, many people are away, but you took the time to come to our studios and talk to us about this very important conversation. We do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Speaking about autism with Specialist Neurologist Dr. Tracy Mmako.